The Access Live event.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris, and I will be your moderator this evening. I'd like to thank you all for joining our live interactive event. We host these events to give Congresswoman Pingree the chance to speak directly with you, wherever you are, and reach as many of you and answer as many questions as possible. This evening, we'll be discussing the ongoing government shutdown, looming healthcare crisis, and other impacts of the Trump administration. As I mentioned, this is an interactive forum, and we'd love to hear from you. We'll be taking as many questions from participants as we possibly can live during this event. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time, and you will be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. They'll take down your name and the question, and then the next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call and you'll be able to ask your question directly. To join Representative Pingree's e-newsletter, please press *6 to provide your email address to our team. If you're streaming this event on our website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player. Again, we're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can this evening. We receive a lot of questions on our live events, so if we're not able to address your question, please leave a voicemail after the event or send us an email at rep.shelley.pingree@mail.house.gov. Again, if you have any questions throughout the event, please press *3 on your telephone keypad, or if you're watching the event, type them below the streaming player. Press *6 if you'd like to join Representative Pingree's e-newsletter. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Congresswoman Shelley Pingree. Congresswoman, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, good evening, everyone. I am Congresswoman Shelley Pingree. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for joining the call. I know you all have busy lives, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to connect with you, to share updates from Washington, and most importantly, to hear directly from you. As we all know, the federal government has been shut down since October 1st, and enhanced premium tax credits are expiring, putting affordable health care at risk for thousands of Mainers. These are challenging and chaotic times, and I understand you might have a lot of questions and thoughts and concerns. As your representative in Congress, I am here not only to help answer these questions and share updates from Washington, but I want to listen. I'm so thrilled to have a real healthcare expert, Ann Wollison, Executive Director of Consumers for Affordable Healthcare, on the line with us tonight to help answer your questions. We'll be getting to your questions very soon, but first I'd like to turn it over to Ann to say a few words.
Thank you, Congresswoman Pingree, for convening this call tonight to stay connected to and to hear from and help Mainers stay informed about their health coverage options. And thanks again to the listeners for joining us tonight. I am Ann Wollison, Executive Director of Consumers for Affordable Health Care, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, Maine-based organization with the mission to help Mainers access the health care they need. Consumers for Affordable Health Care is designated by Maine's Attorney General, Aaron Fry, as Maine's Consumer Assistance Program. And as such, we provide a toll-free helpline and in-person assistance to Mainers needing help understanding their private and public health insurance options. And we also help Mainers apply for and enroll in coverage. And one other thing we do that I understand many Mainers don't know about is we help them understand their appeals rights when an insurance company denies their claims. Admittedly, there has been a lot of concern about changes to health coverage programs, including Medicaid, MaineCare in Maine, and the Affordable Care Act marketplace, CoverMe.gov in Maine, as well as concerns about the cost of coverage. The good news is that Mainers continue to have options and that free help is available to any Mainer who needs help sorting through their coverage options. Our trained helpline staff fielded over 7,200 calls from Mainers last year and emails from Mainers, and we anticipate talking to even more this year. That is what I hope to be able to do tonight, answer some of your questions regarding health coverage, and to let you know where to turn for assistance.
Well, thank you, Ann, and thank you to everyone calling in tonight. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your keypad at any time and get in the queue to ask a question. A member of our staff will collect your questions, and we will answer as many as we can during this live event. Let me just request that you try to abbreviate your comments so we can get to as many questions as possible. And please be respectful and mindful of your neighbors on the line with you. If you are just joining us, press *3 on your phone to ask a question. I am looking forward to hearing your questions. So with that, the operators are standing by to take your questions. Who do we have on the line with our first question?
Congresswoman, our first caller is Peter. Peter, you are on live. What's on your mind?
So, hi, Representative Pingree. Thank you for doing this. My question is about Speaker Johnson, and I read for the first time that he seemed to be willing to negotiate a little bit, and I'm just wondering if you've heard anything more within the House to help resolve this and get the House back into session.
Well, thanks so much, Peter, for calling in, and thanks. That's obviously a very good question. I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell everyone when this shutdown will end, because it is certainly creating a hardship on those federal employees who are not receiving a paycheck, particularly the ones who still have to go to work, and we want them to know how much we appreciate all they do for all of us. The Speaker so far has been unwilling to bring the Republicans back into the House. We have tried to make it a practice of coming into Washington as much as possible, but for the most part, the doors on the chamber are locked and there's no negotiating going on. The Senate is in session, as you know, and so they have been continuing to vote on a variety of matters, mostly taking up the continuing resolution and looking to see if they can find any negotiating. So my feeling is we are here and ready to negotiate at any time, and we know how desperately people want us to get people back to work and also to resolve these issues before November 1st. Two of our biggest concerns are, as Ann mentioned, the fact that the premium tax credits will expire, and a lot of people have to make decisions about their health care costs starting on November 1st. And then, of course, recently we've been told that the Trump administration plans to stop funding SNAP benefits, which is a travesty. I'm sure we can have opportunities to talk more about that on the call, but at this point, I'm sorry to say, we don't have any updates on negotiating, and we have told the Republicans we are ready to negotiate and talk about these critical items at any point in time. So thank you. How about our next question?
Thank you, Congresswoman. Let me just remind everyone, if you're just joining, if you would like to ask a question live during this event, press *3 on your telephone keypad. And if you'd like to sign up for the Congresswoman's very informative e-newsletter, press *6. Our next question is an online question, and it comes from Kathy. Kathy asks, what are the chances that the government shutdown and/or Trump policies will start to erode Social Security benefits to seniors who paid into the system?
Thank you for your question. I think it's really a two-part question. So number one, there should be no interruption in your benefits if you receive Social Security or SSI. During a government shutdown, all recipients should continue to receive them. The Social Security can also issue replacement or original Social Security cards, process applications. Field offices are open, so we greatly appreciate all of the people who work for Social Security continuing to do that work. So thank you for that. I have been worried about the long-term health of Social Security, and particularly this administration. Some concerns about the potential for privatizing Social Security and reduction in staff. So we have pushed back in a variety of ways, saying that we understand people paid into this system. It's critically important to those people who receive it, and we want to make sure that no harm is done to Social Security. And so once the government is open again, we will continue to monitor staff cuts, funding cuts, any changes that are going on there. Also making sure that we continue to protect the privacy of your information. So thank you for that question, and happy to take the next one.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Let me remind everyone once again, if you're just joining us, if you want to ask a question during this event, and this is an interactive event, please press *3 on your telephone keypad right now. And if you'd like to sign up for the Congresswoman's newsletter, please press *6. Our next question is from Tom. Tom, you are on live. What's your question?
My question is, all the federal workers and potentially a bunch of state workers and the military aren't getting paid, or very well likely will not get paid. But yet the House of Representatives and the Senators are still being paid. Is there any chance of the Speaker Jeffries or anybody else coming over and saying we don't want to be paid if our troops and our federal workers can't be paid, and put the emphasis on the Republicans to do the same thing?
Well, thank you, Tom. That's a really good question, and it's one that we often get asked. Currently, the military is receiving a paycheck, and that may end up continuing at this point, but you're right. Most federal workers are either furloughed, not going to work and not receiving a paycheck, and just waiting until the shutdown ends to get that reimbursement for their paycheck, or they are actually going to work, like our TSA workers, and many of them are not receiving their paycheck. This is a question that, as I said, that comes up a lot. There's actually an amendment to the Constitution. I'll just quickly read it. The 27th Amendment is no law varying the compensation for the services of senators and representatives shall take effect until election of representatives have intervened. So the point is we have a constitutional prohibition against withholding our pay, but we are allowed to ask for our pay to be withheld. So I did that because I did feel that if members of Congress are not able to resolve this situation, and while I may blame the Republicans on the other side of the aisle and they may blame me, the fact is we shouldn't be receiving our pay either, and we should experience the same situation. So I'm having my pay withheld, just like federal workers, until this is resolved.
Thank you so much for that question, Tom. All right, Congresswoman, let's go right to our next question. Next up, we have Kara on the line. Kara, you are live. What's your question?
Hello. I would like to understand why when I go on coverme.gov, I'm self-employed, I pay for my own health insurance. Looking at the premiums and the subsidies for 2026, if I make $62,599, I'm actually eligible for a substantial subsidy, over $800, so over 50% of my premium. But if I make $2 more than that, if I make $62,601, I'm eligible for zero subsidy. That there is no logic there with that cliff approach, so I would really like to understand the rationale for it.
Yes, that's a very good question. Thank you for bringing it up. We are so lucky to have Ann on our call tonight. I'm happy to answer the question, but I know that Ann could do it with a little bit more experience and finesse. So, Ann, if you don't mind taking that, I think you could help people to better understand exactly how these tax subsidies work and why it's so critical that we don't lose them.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley, and thanks for the listener for such an important question. The Affordable Care Act that was created provided what I refer to as advanced premium tax credits. Those are tax credits that most Mainers are benefiting from and are different than the enhanced tax credits that have been the focus of discussion over the last several weeks and months. The question about why if you made $2 more, you would be eligible for no subsidies, where you're getting a significant subsidy, making just a little bit less is a little puzzling to me, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about your situation because it doesn't seem right that just making $2 more would eliminate your subsidy altogether. Subsidies are based on income, like you mentioned earlier. And we get questions like this every single day on our Consumer Assistance Program helpline. And I would urge you to reach out to our helpline staff to really understand your options. It sounds like you're familiar with CoverMe.gov. You've used the tool before, but it doesn't make any sense to me that if you made $2 more, you would be eligible for no subsidies when you're getting such a steep subsidy now. I will say that CoverMe.gov has been very proactive in responding to problems with the database. So if there's a problem with either the information you're putting into the system or the way the system is receiving the information, that is something that Consumers for Affordable Health Care works on a regular basis with Maine's Marketplace. And I would be happy to share my contact information at the end of this call, and you can reach out to me directly, and we can look into that. Again, I might be able to say it's because of your income level, but where you're receiving such a good subsidy, or you're able to receive a good subsidy, a $2 difference really shouldn't make a difference in terms of completely eliminating the subsidy. Our helpline number is 1-800-965-7476. That's the Consumer Assistance Program. Again, the number is 1-800-965-7476. And if okay, at the end of the call, I'm also happy to share my email so you can reach out to me and we can look at it a little bit more closely. But thank you for asking the question. If it really is a problem and other people are experiencing it, we would like to be able to resolve it as soon as possible.
Thank you so much for that. Let's go to our next caller right away. Next up, we have Linda on the line. Linda, you are on live. What is your question? Hello, Linda, are you there? Well, I think we may have lost Linda, but I do know what her question was, so I'm going to ask it for her. Linda asked, whatever it takes, what can we do to stop Trump from tearing down our democracy?
Well, thank you, Linda. Yeah, that's a question that I pretty much get asked every single day. I think people are deeply concerned about what's happened to our country in the last 9 to 10 months. And even those people who voted for Donald Trump and thought they were making a good choice about lowering costs or a variety of other things that they supported have started to raise concerns on everything from his anti-constitutional behavior to how the money is being spent and staff people are being cut at the federal level. I, of course, have been deeply concerned as a member of Congress, and I believe that many of my colleagues on the Republican side share some of these concerns. It's just been very difficult for them to get them to fight back. So number one, we need the Republicans to speak up and talk about what is contained in the United States Constitution and the fact that Congress has the power of the purse. So it sounds a little bit esoteric and like a civics lesson, but the fact is the Constitution specifies that funding decisions should be made at the congressional level. And as an appropriator and someone who's worked on these issues and worked on negotiating back and forth with my colleagues, it's deeply disturbing to find this president and the people in his administration just willfully going ahead and making cuts to spending levels, programs, whether it's the Department of Education or the EPA, housing, healthcare, the National Institutes of Health, cancer research, just across the board without the consent of Congress, and also making huge staffing cuts, cutting people who perform vital services. I truly believe that these are unconstitutional actions. And in most of the lawsuits, and there have probably been 300 to 400, maybe even more now, the courts have been deciding at some level that it is true Congress has this power and this should not be being done. Of course, people's concerns go far beyond that. Many of them are about how the president is interpreting election laws, sending out election observers for this current election and worries about what might happen during the next election cycle. They go to immigration and due process. Are people being picked up on the streets who are United States citizens and not being given their due process or the power of law? And the list is long. So we all have a responsibility here. As a member of Congress, I devote my time to fighting back every single day. And I think one of the most important things to do is to let my constituents know about where these funding cuts are being made, what damage is being done in their name, and where they need to speak up and let members of Congress and others know that they care deeply about some of the things that are happening. We also have been engaging in legal fights, signing on to amicus brief, and making sure that we are fighting those things in the courts. And of course, we'll have an opportunity in the next election cycle to fight back and to change the balance of power in Congress. It is frustrating at times under our system because the party in control has all power to decide what items come to the floor, to decide what items get taken up in committees. And there have been a few times where we have been able to work with our Republican colleagues to fight back, but often they seem unwilling to do things that they would have absolutely done during another administration or spoken up in another time. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to continue speaking up and fighting back. It was wonderful to see the huge turnout at No King's Day and the many other people who show up on street corners, are making phone calls, sending letters, and making sure that their voices are heard, because this is our country, our democracy, our future, and we all have to continue staying in the fight. Next question.
Yes, right away. Let's go next to Pat. Pat is calling from Cape Elizabeth. Pat, you are on live. What's on your mind?
Hi, thank you, Congressman Pingree. My son, after graduating college, enlisted in the Army as a way of giving back to his country, and now he's being potentially asked to what he believes are unconstitutional acts, turning arms against fellow citizens, potentially being deployed for international aggression that's not sanctioned by Congress. What can Congress do to help us and help our service people who are being placed in these untenable positions?
Thank you for your question. It was breaking up a little bit, but I'm pretty sure you said you had a son who was deploying in the Army, so tell your son thank you for his service. And this issue about whether or not he would be called on to bear arms against citizens or other things that he doesn't believe he took an oath to. And it's a very important voice that he has, and I think it's a really important question for Americans to ask. We are all so grateful for those who are willing to serve their country and defend and protect our freedoms. But you're right, there are questions being raised as this president has, in my opinion, illegally attempted to deploy the military onto the streets and often to use them against citizens. And I think there's a growing concern that the military, the National Guard, and others will be asked to be deployed against citizens who are lawfully exercising their right of free speech to protest. It is such a fundamentally important part of our country, and I think we all want to make sure that that never is allowed to change and that we do not ask our military to fight back. It is illegal, it is unconstitutional, and it's a really important right to protect and preserve. But the other that you mentioned is on troops being deployed without the power of war, and I have fought many times for Congress to be required to approve an authorization of military force, we call it an AOMF, and that no troops would be deployed without that. People are raising concerns in the Caribbean right now, and I think that is very justified, and you've seen the Senate try to take up this measure, and I would like to see it taken up in the House. There is often a coalition that builds with some Republicans and some Democrats who think that it's really important that we go to Congress for this power to declare war or to engage in a war-like act. So I think we have to continue to push back on that and to make people aware of that very important constitutional provision. Since I did mention the Caribbean and I meant to talk about this earlier, I just want to say also I think everyone in Jamaica is in our thoughts tonight, and we share deep concerns for their welfare and well-being, and hope that the country fares well. But it also raises concerns, I think, about the importance of tackling issues related to climate change and how severe storms are becoming. And so we hope for the best for the people of Jamaica, and we'll continue to keep them in our thoughts. Next question.
Yes, thank you, Congresswoman. I'd like to just a quick reminder, again, if you have a question you would like to ask during this call, please press *3 right now. Okay, our next caller is AJ. AJ from Westbrook. You are on live. What's your question?
Hi there. I am a disabled Mainer who is reliant on SNAP benefits, and I was under the impression that there is a contingency reserve for SNAP benefits for these situations. And I was wondering if you could explain to me whether or not it will be possible to use that reserve come November 1st, or, if not.
Well, thank you very much for your question, and I do hope we do not cause you any undue hardship, because I know you, like so many Mainers, are deeply concerned about making sure that you have that SNAP benefit in order to buy food, and we are here fighting for you and trying to make sure that that benefit continues. So, as you have heard, the Trump administration has decided to discontinue SNAP benefits as of November 1st. And they have been informing the states over the last week or so to not send in the vital information that is necessary to fill up your EBT card and others. So our argument, and I've been a member of the Appropriations Subcommittee on Agriculture for many of the years that I've been in Congress, and so I know I've had an opportunity to learn a lot about the SNAP benefit program. And we know that there is a contingency fund at the USDA. It's somewhere between $5 and $6 billion. It takes about $8 to $9 billion for 1 month of SNAP benefits. So there is absolutely the money there, and other funds could be shifted around at the USDA to make sure we keep that fund whole and that nobody loses their SNAP benefits. As I said, the Trump administration has said otherwise, and has said that because of the shutdown, they've determined that they do not have to put out the money that people desperately need. And as you know, and as you mentioned in your question, a lot of people are already worrying, since this is the last week of money of the previous cycle. So we have been pushing back on the administration, arguing with them that it's not truthful to say to people that they don't have the ability to do this, and that it's cruel and immoral to say to people that you are going to withhold food over a political debate. There was a lawsuit filed today by attorney generals across the country, including the attorney general from Maine, attempting to use the courts to say and to force this administration to release those funds and make sure that people get the benefits that they need. Just to try to put it into perspective for people, while I know that we have incredible food banks in Maine, and they are going to be working very hard to attempt to fill the need for people who don't have sufficient money to put food on the table. It is virtually impossible for our food banks to meet that need. There's about 9 times as much money that goes out throughout the state in SNAP benefits as there is dollar value of food that comes from food banks. So you can imagine we need really about 10 times as much food going into our food banks right now. They have also experienced cuts from the USDA, whether it's in the local food procurement program or other programs that have helped to fill their demand. And from what I've learned from food bank operators, their demand was already up prior to this announcement of SNAP benefit cuts. So they're already dealing with increased need, partly because of the high cost of food, partly because people are just balancing so many other high costs, whether it's energy costs or housing costs. There are just a variety of things going on, as well as federal workers who are not going to work and need that aid. So we have been devoting a lot of time, my colleagues in the House have as well, pushing back on the administration and telling them that it's unconscionable for them to withhold this money. This is money that they have. There's other money that they can divert, and this administration has thought nothing of sending $20 billion to Argentina or lining up money for a whole variety of things that they care about, and they should treat people who need food aid with the same amount of respect in states throughout our country. Okay,
Thank
next
you
question.
so much for that. Yes, absolutely, Congresswoman. Real quickly, before we get to that question, I'd like to encourage everyone on this call to sign up for Congresswoman Pingree's e-newsletter. You can do that right now by pressing *6. Our next caller is Laura. Laura, you are on live. What's your question?
Thank you for answering my question. My question is about the Affordable Care Act. When people that currently have Affordable Care Act will know what or can decide if they're going to continue with it or switch to another Affordable Care Act, when they will know the price of what the premiums are going to be.
Great. Thank you for that question. It is so timely. And I'd love to bring Ann back on and talk a little bit more about how people learn that information and why November 1st is a critical deadline and what happens during the month of November. So, Ann, you're the expert.
So thanks, Congresswoman. And thanks, everyone, for your really thoughtful questions and the thoughtful responses from Congresswoman Pingree. Really appreciate listening in on all of this. So to the caller or to the person asking the question, you can call our helpline for help, but you can also visit coverme.gov, and you can take a look at what your options might be by using what's referred to as the shopping tool. It's a confidential shopping tool that you put in. It's not like filling out the whole enrollment application. It asks for some basic information like your zip code and how much money you expect to earn next year, your age. And it will provide you with an estimate of what your premium would cost and what you might expect to receive as a subsidy, assuming that the enhanced tax credits are not going to be extended at this time. So subsidies are still available, and you can see what your options are in terms of health coverage using the shopping tool. So again, for you and for other listeners, you can go to coverme.gov. When you are on the home page, there, right in the middle of the bar on top in green, it says Shop. If you drop down the Shop menu, there is a Compare Plans and Find Providers queue. You click onto that, and again, you just provide a little bit of information, and it will provide you with a pretty close estimate of what you can expect to pay for premiums in 2026, with the exception that we don't know what's going to happen with the enhanced tax credits. You can also call our helpline at Consumers for Affordable Health Care. I gave that number out earlier, but can share it again. It's 1-800-965-7476, and talk to one of our helpline experts who can walk you through the Compare shopping tool as well. I hope that's helpful, and I think if you go to the tool and you have other questions, you should feel free to reach out to us also.
I'll just add in, and thank you so much, Ann. We have been hearing from a tremendous number of our constituents. Some of them have gotten letters from their health insurer letting them know already what their premium costs will be. Others have used the tool. But many of them who fall in that area where the premium tax credits, where we have no guarantee yet that the Republicans will go along, and the reason we're sort of fighting on this whole thing is to make sure that we do get those premium tax credits renewed. But many of them have told us that they're seeing double the cost or thousands of dollars more, often making health insurance unaffordable. A tremendous number of people who get their insurance through coverme.gov are small business owners or farmers or fishermen or people who don't get their health insurance provided at their work. So this is one of the only opportunities that they have to find affordable affordable health care. And that is just a huge concern for a lot of people. If a lot of people are to choose to drop their health care coverage, that will impact everyone. And one of the reasons we often talk about how this impacts everyone, even if you're receiving your insurance through work, is because if we lose many more people in the pool because the insurance costs become unaffordable, that raises everyone's costs. and it could be a huge challenge when we're already facing a variety of other increasing costs in healthcare. So there's a lot to talk about related to that, but I just wanted to mention that this is a particularly critical topic. It's one of the reasons why we have said to the Republicans that now is the time to extend those tax credits, and we need a commitment from them to do that, because people have to decide in November, and their credits and their current subsidies will expire at the end of this year, but they have to make the decisions in November about what their health care coverage will be for 2026.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm just going to really quickly. Would it be helpful for you to hear from people that are seeing those steep increases so you can share them with your colleagues?
Oh, absolutely. If anyone on this call wants to communicate with our office or me, or if you guys want to let us know through the information you're collecting, we are sharing those stories, and we can share them privately without your information. But it really helps to be able to explain to my colleagues who have been reluctant to come back to work and resolve this issue exactly what this means for working people and for people in our state, because I know these things are happening in states across the country. So any information is very helpful to us.
Thank you both for that very valuable information. Let's get right to our next question. Next up, we have Stephen on the line. Stephen, you are on live. What's your question?
Yes, thanks for taking my question, Representative Pingree. I know the Congress is shut down, at least in the House, and they don't want to come back in, but also there's a congressman that was duly elected from Arizona, I believe, that hasn't been sworn in yet. That could be the deciding vote to release the Epstein files. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Thanks for your question, Stephen. So I guess we have all been making the case that the main reason that Speaker Johnson has not brought the House back into session is because when he does that, when we go into regular session of Congress again, he will have to swear in our newest member, Representative Grijalva. Representative Grijalva was elected in a special election in Arizona. Her father was a colleague of mine. He passed away. She ran for his seat and has won that seat, and now has been waiting weeks to be sworn in. That's very unconventional in the House. There are times when, even if we don't come into full session, the new members are sworn in during what's called a pro forma session, but it's just a very short meeting that happens of the House, even when we're not in full session. The Speaker has been unwilling to do that, and has been unwilling to bring the House back in. That's also very unconventional. We have had shutdowns before that have lasted as long as a month. The last Donald Trump shutdown was 35 days. But we came in frequently, debated other issues, took up other votes, had committee meetings. So this is really unprecedented and unheard of. When Representative Grijalva is sworn in, she will be the last signature, the 218th signature on the discharge petition, which is a mechanism that Congress can use to bring a bill to the floor when the leadership, the party in power, is reluctant to have that bill heard. But as you may know, there's a discharge petition related to releasing the Epstein files, and that discharge petition is literally just one short. It has Republican and Democratic signatures on it, so she would trigger that. Then Congress would have to move forward on that, triggering a vote to require everybody in Congress to vote on the issue of whether or not there should be transparency around this heinous act. And as you know, it's attracted a lot of public attention, and most members of Congress, I think, if they were forced to cast a vote, would say they believe there should be transparency and the victims should have some assurance that the information will be resolved finally. So thanks for your question. That is certainly a suspicion of all of us. Is the reason we've spent so much time away from doing our jobs is because the Speaker does not want to swear in our newest member.
Thank you so much. Let's go right to our next caller. Next up, we have Michael, who's calling from Standish. Michael, you are on live. What's on your mind?
Yes, I want to know if, as this keeps going on, will it affect the VA retirement pay?
Very good question. Thank you for that. And as you know, veterans' retirement pay is essential, and it is the promise that we make to those people who serve our country, and it would be a travesty to have any interruption in their retirement pay. There should be no impact on veterans' benefits. They are going to continue to be, they have been continuing to be processed and delivered. That includes compensation, pension, education, and housing benefits. I think that there have been some restriction in the ability to get outreach or career counseling. Some services have been limited, and so we are anxious to get the government moving again so that veterans will have the full range of services, because again, veterans have served their country, and we want to make sure that there is no interruption in care. But so far, both benefits and health care has not been impacted by the shutdown and would not be.
Thank you so much for your participation, Michael. Let's go to our next caller. We have Elizabeth on the line from Wyndham. Elizabeth, you are on live. What's your question?
Thank you. I want to know what penalty can be imposed on Trump for the demolition of the East Wing of the White House. He flaunted the real process. He didn't involve the Federal Historic Commission. He doesn't own or rent the house, and the rest of us would be sued if we did that to a home we didn't own.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. It is shocking. It is shocking to see what the president has done to the East Wing of the White House. While many of us had heard rumors that he had plans to build a big ballroom, and people had seen maybe some vague pictures floating around in the White House, when asked, he said it might require a minor modification to the East Wing, but he didn't intend to do anything major. Then almost seemingly overnight, the backhoes and bulldozers showed up, and that was completely dismantled within a matter of days. My suspicion is that he attempted to haul it away as fast as possible before anyone could even hardly stop him, and I wholeheartedly agree. He did not get any of the necessary approvals. He did not go to the commission, and he's been trying to make the case that somehow as president of the United States, he didn't have to ask permission to tear it down. He is somewhat conceding that maybe he has to get permission for the permits, but it has raised so many questions. And as you said very appropriately, if any of the rest of us were about to change a building, a structure, build a new garage, tear something down, in most of the communities that we all live in, we would be required to get that level of permission, so that the idea, and these are people talking about houses that we all own, that we live in. So for the idea that the president, who is merely a guest of the voters of this country, and does not own what we all call the people's house, it's truly shocking. And I think it has caused a lot of concern on both sides of the aisle, although we have not heard very many voices being raised. I'm the ranking member on the Interior and Environment Subcommittee, which involves oversight of the funding of the national parks, which has some responsibilities here. And as that position, we sent a letter immediately asking the president to cease and desist the destruction. As you can imagine, the president did not pay any attention. But we will continue to do that and work with our colleagues every step of the way. We do not have concrete plans about how big this building will be. We don't know if it will fit in with the rest of the White House. We don't know what he's planning to do with the bunker underneath. And I think a lot of concerns have been raised about the donors to this structure. The president sort of blithely says, oh, well, I'm going to get private donors to pay for it, so what's the big worry? Well, there is never a public project like that where the donors aren't vetted, and there aren't important considerations raised about conflict of interest and what do the donors expect in return. So for so many reasons, this has been extremely upsetting, and I think also represents somewhat of a metaphor for the president that we deal with, who thinks nothing of doing things that are unconstitutional or lawless, who thinks nothing of destroying the very country that he's been given the privilege of being the president of. and also does things with absolutely no transparency and no consultation with the American public. So there are so many reasons this is wrong, and we will continue to fight back and use every vehicle that we can to stop him.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next up, we have Nicole on the line. Nicole's calling from Harrison. Nicole, you are on. What's your question?
My question is, what is going on with ICE and DHS snatching American citizens? I don't like what they're doing illegally to the immigrants, violating people's due process rights, whether they're here legally or not. But they are taking American citizens, not allowing people access to attorneys, not allowing Congress members and other elected officials to check on what's going on in these facilities. How the hell is this a thing?
Yeah, very good question, and I think this has just raised huge concerns with people throughout our country. Even if you had concerns about the border, for most people, this does not extend to picking up mothers, fathers, daughters, employees, American citizens, and others who are being picked up in communities and cities throughout our country. The president is attempting to deploy the military in many cities in our country and has gotten pushback from those cities and also from the courts. We are expressing our anger and our frustration with this with our colleagues and are trying to use every tool possible to stop these. And I think it's been very helpful that more and more of the American public is starting to understand that there is nothing ever appropriate about picking up a parent outside of a school or going into a workplace and picking up American citizens, detaining people, not giving people due process. And we are all in a huge fight to continue to push back. I've been doing that directly with ICE. I have an amazing team that works in my office in Portland, Maine, and if any of you ever have concerns, please feel free to call our office. We do our very best to locate people, to make sure that they get their due process, to push back with ICE and the Border Patrol, and to make sure that people get that opportunity to have legal representation. And we will continue to fight for every individual in our own state, but also on the federal policy level. But I am deeply worried that this will continue, that this is part of this administration, their continuing push and their illegal activities. So thank you for bringing up the question, and please know that it's one of our number one concerns, and we have a huge part of our team dedicated to working on this.
Congresswoman, next up, we have Jack from Westbrook. Jack, you are on live. What's your question?
Hi, I'd like to know what's going on with the Department of Education, specifically the Office of Civil Rights. Are they doing anything at all at this point? And I actually have an outstanding complaint, which has gone on for almost 2 years now, well before the Trump administration started. So I'd like to know where these kinds of complaints with the Department of Education stand.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, and I'm sorry about your outstanding complaint and that it has not been dealt with, but we are deeply worried about what is going on in this office. As you may have heard, that the president is attempting to dismantle the entire Office of Education, and just a few days ago I signed onto a letter with my colleagues expressing our concern and opposition to the administration's decision to lay off federal employees that do these very jobs. Now, this is one of those areas where I think some people have said, oh, who needs the Federal Department of Education? It's just a waste of taxpayers' dollars and nothing I want to spend my money on. But when you start to understand that the Office of Civil Rights and these very protections against students and against families are often the only backstop to someone who has a complaint or a concern, and without that department at the federal level, there is nowhere for people and families to turn, and you're giving us an example of that. We would be happy to help work on your complaint with you, so if you want to give a call to our office, 207-774-5019, we will be happy to track down anything we can about that, but about the concern that you have and the claim that you've had for 2 years that hasn't been handled. We will do whatever we can to get that handled for you. But we are deeply worried that this administration does not have respect for this Office of Civil Rights and is doing their best right now to dismantle it and fire the people who work there. It's a real example of when people talk about Doge or Elon Musk or what's been going on with this administration taking away vital services of government, it often doesn't hit home until it's something that you desperately need that impacts your family, and then you realize what a vital service this has been and how important it is not to lose it. So thank you for bringing up that issue and sharing your own personal experience, and please be in touch with us if we can help you directly.
Let's get right to our next caller. Now on the line, we have Jamie. Jamie, you are on live. What is your question?
Thank you so much for having this call tonight. My question is if you have been having any conversations during the shutdown with your GOP colleagues, if they seem willing to start talking and negotiating and getting to work. And I just feel like at this point, all the norms and rules have been tossed out the window in the executive branch. So maybe we need to get creative with, if Speaker Johnson is blaming the Democrats and holding you hostage, maybe Rep. Jeffries should start some negotiations, take charge of this, have some press conferences, get creative about how things are approached, because it doesn't seem like there's any signs of norms and rules working in our favor. So I'm just curious if how the spirit is with the Republicans that you work with.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's a great question and a really important point of view. And first, I just want to emphasize one of the points that you made. For the years I've had the opportunity of serving in Congress, I have never seen the dismantling of norms and rules so quickly. And it's been an important lesson in how you can't have everything etched in the law, but you do depend on good people doing the right thing and having good intent and being willing to work together. And that's been so critically important, that level of goodwill and working across the aisle, and so many things that have really kept things like the appropriations process working, which are just being dismantled by this administration. So thank you for mentioning that. And your second question about Republicans is a really important one. I have long worked with a variety of Republicans on every kind of issue, from agricultural policy to veterans affairs to even things like authorization for the use of military force, where there are a variety of members who care deeply about those things on both sides of the aisle. And I think very specifically, one of the reasons that Speaker Johnson does not want all of us in town is to do his best to keep us from talking to each other, because there's no way, when you have 435 people milling around the halls of Congress, taking votes, working with each other on committees, that you can sort of keep us from cooperating and working together and talking about how important it is to end all of this. And so I think that's very specifically why Speaker Johnson has not had the Republicans come in. Democrats have been routinely coming to Washington, and once in a while we find one or two of our colleagues to talk to. I've been sending a few of them texts and just trying to see if we can stir up some conversation. But I will just say that part of the reason that we meet together in the halls of Congress is because those very things happen, and we need that to happen. Now, the Senate has been in session because they have votes in play, and so I think there's more of that activity going on right now because the Republicans and Democrats are both coming into work on the Senate side, but it's dramatically missing in the House, and I do hope that the Republicans feel the pressure soon to bring people back to work and allow for more of this kind of productive conversation that could help us get to some decision making and end this destructive shutdown that we're in right now.
Thank you, Congressman. Let's get to our next question quickly. Marilyn from Litchfield, you are on the line. What is your question?
Yes, my question is, this is only 10 months into a Trump administration, and we have gone through Doge and the tariffs and all this money he says he's bringing in, yet we're having all these cuts to the most vulnerable people, the elderly, disabled, and children in our state. our country. And I wonder what we can do. We do the No Kings demonstration. We donate food to food banks. We get the word out there to call our representatives and everything. How are we going to protect those people that are most vulnerable?
Thank you so much for your question, and it's a really critically important one. And thank you for talking about the level of activism that you and so many others are participating in, whether it's the No Kings rally or making the phone calls or the kind of volunteer work which is going to be increasingly necessary at places like food banks and other places to help our friends and neighbors. But you're right. This administration has given huge tax cuts to billionaires and is taking away aid from some of the most vulnerable people. Even before this shutdown and the big ugly bill, they made deep cuts to Medicaid, which will impact some of our most vulnerable citizens, also impact our rural hospitals. They've made cuts to SNAP benefits prior to this shutdown of SNAP that's coming in November, and it's going to continue. So we all just have to do everything we can to fight back. We are on the front lines of that as members of Congress, but frankly, our power comes from all of you and from everyone continuing to speak up and make your voices heard and let people know that this is unacceptable, that you don't pay your tax dollars in to give benefits to the wealthiest in this country. You do it to help your friends and neighbors. And whether that's through our educational system or our feeding system or our healthcare system, we are all truly in this together, and we have to stay in this fight. I do hope that we'll be able to change the balance of power in the next election, but that's not until 2026, and we just have to fight back every single day between now and then. And thank you so much for all of you being a part of that.
Congresswoman, we're nearly out of time, so I'd like to hand it back to you for your closing remarks.
Well, thank you, everyone. We are at about the end of this live event, and I just want to thank everyone again. Thank you for taking the time to join us. If you had a question that we didn't have a chance to get to, please stay on the line and leave me a message, and either I or a member of my staff will get back to you if you leave your phone number or your email address. I want to add one more thing before we end. If you never need anything at all you think I could assist you with, please contact one of my offices at any time. I have district offices in Portland and in Waterville. To reach our main district office, you can call 207-774-5019, or you can send me an email at rep.shelley.pingree@mail.house.gov. These are very challenging times, as we all know, and I understand that you might have a lot of questions and thoughts and concerns. And I hope you found tonight's Tele-Town Hall to be informative. I will be hosting more of these events in the future to keep you informed on what we are working on the shutdown, and in other important updates. But thank you again. Have a good night.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Once again, if we were not able to address your question, please leave a voicemail after the event or send us an email at rep.shelley.pingree@mail.house.gov. Thank you all so much and have a great evening.